Well, hey, folks, we're here for another great 5 Points podcast with the Chief. I'm Monte Manson, and guess what? Today, we're going to talk about all of the different ways that this organization partners with different entities, whether it's internal or external. We're going to have a great session. You guys stay tuned. Let's get cooking. Well, Chief, here we are for another podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a beautiful day as we move into the fire year.
Absolutely. Now, I know folks will notice today we are sans one of our partners. She is out sick. Chief Berlew, hope you get better. We still have a great show for the folks, and we're going to keep it moving. What do you think, Chief?
Yeah, you remember when we started this podcast, it was only the two of us.
That is true.
And then we wanted it to get different perspectives. So Chief Berlew got lucky to, I almost said have to, get the opportunity to sit in here with us. And here it is. We're back, just two of us, talk about a variety of topics today.
Absolutely. We'll keep it going. And, you know, one of the things that I think we can really focus on today, if it's all right with you, Chief, is I think one of the strongest areas that we utilize as an organization is our ability to formulate and fuse and work through partnerships across the department, with other agencies, with other countries. I think we've got a lot of power there. And so what do you say maybe we touch on a number of different areas where we really use our partnerships to make this department as strong as it is?
I think that is so important. And when you set a base foundation of recognizing that you can't do this alone, that it takes everybody to solve this problem, whether it's a prevention problem or a suppression problem, it is a great opportunity, and we recognize that comes from private partnership, from international partnerships, from local, state, federal, tribal partnerships, to be able to do that. It's about our people. It's about both internal and external. And so I look forward to jumping into their questions.
I love it. Let's do it. So Wildfire Preparedness Week, it's something that we've done for years now. And so here we are again, 2026. We're in and have completed our Wildfire Preparedness Week. Have hit a number of locations. Wanted to ask you about your experience with this most current and recent version of that. And what are your thoughts about everything that's happening for this year?
Well, thanks, Monty. You know, we were talking about this before we started this podcast today. Where, you know, as long as I have been in Sacramento and long before I have been in Sacramento, there has always been this Wildfire Preparedness Week. In fact, before it was Wildfire Preparedness Week, we called it Wildfire Awareness Week.
Yeah.
But as we watched the fire activity change across California, we recognized that it wasn't just an awareness, but really how to make people more wildfire prepared for a catastrophic wildfire. So, you know, when I look at Wildfire Preparedness Week being the first week of May, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is we used to do it the first week of May, and traditionally it was the first week of May in California.
Yeah.
Because that was really the kickoff to the wildfire season.
Yeah.
Now it's a fire year.
Right.
So we find ourselves in a situation that while it is in May and it's still a great opportunity for citizens and residents to be able to prepare their homes and prepare their property for catastrophic wildfire, we recognize that it is really a year-round problem. Right. So you'll hear me often say that it is a fire year, not a fire season anymore, and it doesn't take any further back than looking at January 2025 and fires that have even happened this spring in 2026 that really solidify that fire year mentality. Now, as it relates to 2026, we had opportunities to start with our partners in Los Angeles County Fire Department, and then we moved to the Santa Barbara County Fire Department, and then Thursday of that week, we went to Sonoma, and then Friday revisited Paradise.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So what's my takeaway of that week is really that that the interagency partnerships, and not just the fire service organizations, but the Firewise communities to the grassroots effort, the fire safe councils, all areas of government, local, state, federal, and tribal government together. And each of us have our unique responsibilities. So making sure that we're coming together with those partners and talking about the preparedness, both by law enforcement and evacuations, by our fire service partners, by emergency management partners. It really is a good opportunity for us all to come together and speak about the message of the year.
So, Chief, one of the things that has been kind of increasing in terms of our involvement is our work with a number of different tribal communities. And a lot of efforts have been made across the department, across the agency, quite frankly. I think, as people know, we now have a tribal relations deputy director who's intimately involved with a lot of different initiatives. We've got a lot of different programs who are involved as well. It was great. I had actually had an opportunity in April to watch a dedication ceremony up at Owl Creek, just outside of
Okay.
Forest Hill. It was an amazing situation, but it just goes to show the type of, I think, dedicated efforts that we have now more than ever towards our partnerships with a number of different tribal communities. So just wanted to look to you to see what your thoughts are as to why this is such an important thing today more than ever. What are your thoughts on that?
This is how I see the department. And I recognize that the department is based on building partnerships and trying to make California more resilient and more defended from wildfire in the state, while making our forests healthier, while making our landscape more resilient. And at CAL FIRE, we could put on our blinders and we could put our heads down and just do the work of the administration and the work of the department. But we recognize that that's not the best way of doing business. So as it relates to our California Native American tribes across California, we know and we have learned so much from them, and there's so much more to learn from each of the tribes across the state who have been stewarding the land for time immemorial, who have been here long before settlers across the state. And it finally hit us that we needed to do more. We had some relationships with some of our tribes across California related to wildfire response, emergency response, some good relationships there. But what we were missing was the relationship in wildfire resilience. So that took us into an effort where recognizing that we had not been bringing our Native American partners into this discussion, that we needed to do so. CAL FIRE moved forward and built a tribal relations program, and that tribal relations program has since expanded. As you said, Deputy Director Helen Lopez leads that program. We have since added an assistant chief, Brooke Spellman, in the southern region. And then we had our incident management teams come to us and ask for additional positions.
Right.
And my response to them was, I will give you the additional positions you need, but one of them on each of those teams will be a dedicated tribal liaison.
That's right.
And they've embraced that, and we continue to move forward. Now, at the same time, we have to make sure that our employees, all of our employees, understand cultural awareness, that they understand that there are so many people out there that have so much to offer, that we have Native American tribes who have this traditional ecological knowledge, who know how to steward the land, and we could learn from them. So what does that mean? That means that as part of legislation, Senate Bill 310, which is a cultural burning agreement between a Native American tribe and the California Natural Resources Agency, but CAL FIRE is well involved in that process, for our tribal members to be able to, as directed by their tribal council, be certified burners, to allow that knowledge to be put on the landscape. And I think that it's working. So far, the Karuk tribe in the north half of the state is the one tribe with a cultural burning agreement. And I believe it's working out well. There's been no concern since the day it was implemented. And there is so much to learn from that tribe, as well as other tribes across the state. But they are really moving forward themselves, and the Karuk moving forward well. And it took a moment for me to sit and reflect of the importance of that as well, and the importance of that being that I was raised in a home where I have Native American heritage and descent, and I never understood or knew much about where I came from. And so I took the opportunity, talking to my parents, talking to my dad specifically, to learn more about his Native American background. And it has been a good journey for me, and something that is a continuing lesson learned. So I encourage this collaboration. I encourage us coming together. I encourage us learning more about cultural burning practices. And then it expands past cultural burning practices, and it goes to prescribed burn associations who are also putting good fire on the landscape, really making our landscape more resilient. And, if there was one message that I could leave with our employees as well as the citizens of California, is there is a place for good fire on the landscape. There is a place that good fire is going to make our landscape more resilient and is going to let it make us less susceptible to catastrophic wildfire.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I think you just kind of hit on one of the things I was thinking about as you were speaking, which is not to speak on behalf of these tribes across the state, but I do wonder, while we talk about all the different benefits that we are experiencing as an organization across the state, I wonder what benefits those tribes are getting from us as well as we partner with them. You have any thoughts on what you think they might be getting from us?
So first and foremost, we have to recognize that every one of these tribes in California are sovereign nations. So you think of California as having a state government, or a city or a county having county or city government. Well, our Native American tribes have tribal sovereignty, and they are of themselves their own nation with their own government. And so just recognizing that we need to be more open, hopefully begins to build some of the trust we need to be able to move forward and learn more from our tribal partners. Now, you asked, what are they getting from us? Arguably, at this point, I will say an open door, an open ear, and ability and recognition that we are going to learn from them.
Speaking of partnerships, we talked a little bit about our partnerships with a number of different tribal communities across the state, but we also have other partnerships around the world. To the point that we actually have created an international program within our cooperative fire protection section. And so wanted to talk a little bit about what is that and how do we partner with other countries around the world. I mean, we're talking Chile, we're talking Australia, Portugal, British Columbia, Mexico, the list goes on. And we're doing a lot of great work with all these different countries, and they want to learn from us as well. We want to learn from them. So kind of wanted to get your perspective on this international program, and what does it mean to the department, and similar to the conversation with the Native American tribes, what benefit are we providing to those countries?
Since I've been in Sacramento 2014, I know that CAL FIRE has, under Director Pimlott, had made their way to Chile. And there had been other requests. And if there were other travels, which I'm sure there were, I was just not aware of them at the time. And it probably wasn't until I was well into my position as the Deputy Director of Fire Protection that I recognized that CAL FIRE was still really an internal focused organization, really focused on California. Then we found an opportunity to really expand that program. So our Cooperative Fire Protection Program had its local, state, federal missions,
Right.
but we really had nobody dedicated to an international program. And it was the recognition of this catastrophic fire year we've been having in California in the last 10 years that we're not the only ones who have this problem. That, as you described earlier, that this problem is occurring over Mediterranean climate. It's occurring in other areas of the country and other areas of the world. So it was a decision to expand the program, to formalize the program, to add staffing to the program, really to manage our international relationships that we have. And it has expanded over 300% since doing so. As you said, we have been to Portugal, to Greece, to Brazil, to Chile.
I mean, all over the
Have a
place.
strong,
Yeah.
solid relationship with British Columbia.
Yeah.
All about not only wildfire response, but prevention, mitigation. British Columbia learning more about their process of First Nations, working with First Nations, tying it into our previous discussion. But at the same time, they're learning from us on things like technology. So it is a program that we're dedicated to, a program that we will continue to learn from. Just recently, I had an opportunity to speak on behalf of the department in the state of California in Rome, Italy, at Aerial Firefighting Global. And what an amazing opportunity it was, not only to talk about our aviation program, but actually that turned and talked about resilience and prevention efforts. 49 nations that were present at Tangent Link's aerial firefighting program that happens every year. But it was a good opportunity to make new connections and learn from each other. You know, I'll go so far, since I talked about aviation, that we have a relationship with New South Wales, where one of their aircraft actually generally come to California every peak of the fire season to provide services when their fire season is over. So it is things like that. It is building capacity. It's building education. It's building resilience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Are you aware, Chief, of whether or not these types of relationships are occurring with other fire departments across the United States? Are we the primary fire agency where this is happening? And are you aware of other places where this is most prevalent?
You know, that is probably a place that I don't know the exact answer to, other than what I hear and what I see. And so I know that other fire agencies across the state, our emergency management partners at Cal OES, I could name them, and then I probably wouldn't name them all, but Los Angeles City Fire, Los Angeles County Fire, San Diego City, and across the nation are all hosting international visitors and fire service experts to really exchange information and build that relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, workforce has continuously grown. We've talked about it a number of times. Go back to however many different podcasts where we've talked about, the growth that our department has experienced, for sure. One of the things that we really spent a lot of time on as an organization also is our strategic plan. The 2024 strategic plan focuses 4 of the 5 goals on the people. And you have been talking about this the entire time. I know that is like always top of mind for you, and I think we're all getting the message. But within all of those different goals and all of the discussions that you have with regards to the focus on the people, one of the questions that does continue to come up is our recruitment and retention of our employees. And what is it specifically that we're doing as an organization to enhance our efforts in that area? So, wanted to hit you up about that, get your perspective on where we are as an organization now. What are some of the things that we need to do moving forward? Are we meeting our mark? That kind of thing.
This is an amazing department. And here, I think, is the takeaway for not just me, but for every one of us. Leave it better than you found it, right?
Preach
It
it.
doesn't matter whether you're in the unit, the region, Sacramento, a program, leave it better than you found it. And over the course of my career, as I've talked about often, I was going to retire in 2021, and then I was afforded this opportunity. So what a great opportunity to recognize that those years that I grew up in this department, this is the only place I've ever worked, that there were some things that I wanted to work on with the team, that it's not just me. It is that I surround myself with excellent individuals who are motivated to hit the same goals and objectives. And so one of the topics was health and wellness. And when we look at the department, it has doubled in size in the last 10 years. When I think of the department, I think about there are still some limited opportunities. Excuse me. But I think about our support services, our admin programs, where there were not a lot of career promotional opportunities once you got in, and now all the way, well, I'm going to use the wrong terms. So all the way from analysts to managers and supervisors, because I don't understand the whole new process. But there are career opportunities for our fire protection staff and our prevention staff. There are more opportunities. There are more peace officers in the units now. There are more personnel to provide that health and wellness component. I even think of our communication operators who have an opportunity to communication operator supervisor or communication supervisor, but still a limited area. I was at an Intel workshop just recently, and I was asked the question about research data specialists, and that's still an area that we need to work on as well. So recognizing that growth, how do we get there? We recognize that there is a strong team here in Sacramento, the regions, and all the way to the units that are doing recruitment and retention efforts. And so we'll hit on recruitment first. We have to recognize that every one of us are a recruiter. We talk about this often.
Right.
We want people to come to work for us. We want to fill these positions. But we all have to make an effort to recruit people into these positions, and I appreciate everybody that's doing that. At the same time, the way you talk about the department is a means on whether people are going to be attracted to come to the department. So every once in a while we have a hiccup. Every once in a while there are areas we can do better, but there are great opportunities with the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection here at CAL FIRE. Recognizing that we are an organization of support services, Office of State Fire Marshal, Natural Resource Management, and Fire Protection. Everybody says that we're the state's fire department. I agree that we're the state's fire department. We're one of the best out there that are available for all hazard and all risk opportunities. We just need to draw those people in. And so doing things like building that recruitment retention program, really taking a look at our workforce and demographics information to make sure that we are representing California as a whole.
Yeah.
Opening opportunities for people to find better access to the information at CAL FIRE. So we created joincalfire.com for that avenue of people to see what CAL FIRE is all about.
Yeah, and it's been amazing so far.
Yes, it has. To have our RVETS program for returning veterans, finding opportunities for them to enter a pathway into CAL FIRE is so important. And it is making this publicly available and talking about it that is going to open up our recruitment, and thereby our retention efforts.
Absolutely. And so, kind of on that vein, one of the areas that I know as an organization we've been talking about as well, again, on this theme of partnerships, is partnering with different colleges. A lot of students graduating. My daughter just graduated this year, and so all these folks are now looking for opportunities and jobs. And as we talk about on a regular basis, upwards or close to 200 different types of classifications that CAL FIRE offers. What efforts are we engaging in with colleges to kind of avail ourselves to these students who may be looking for opportunities in an organization like ours?
Even before our recruitment programs really came into effect, I'm going to give props to our natural resource management program, where they were going around to the forestry schools within California, outside of California, trying to attract individuals into the department. So natural resource management has been doing for decades a phenomenal job at trying to draw that group in. At the same time, we've had a long-standing relationship with California professional firefighters and the Cal Jack program, which provides apprenticeship opportunities to several classifications that we have both in the Office of the State Fire Marshal and in fire protection. And then within the Office of State Fire Marshal, we have some really unique classifications where we just promoted a new assistant deputy director into pipeline safety.
That's
something
right.
you don't
Yeah.
think that we do. So we really have to focus on some of that opportunity. And then I look in this room as we're doing this podcast, and I think of our communication staff who really drawing in their specialties to make us who we are and what we are, from graphic design to television production. That is one of the great things when you talk about 200 classifications, that there are so many great opportunities here at CAL
Yes,
FIRE.
absolutely. 100%. One of the areas that we probably haven't talked about in a podcast and is actually rather new to the department is the idea of a fire innovation unit. For years, we have had a lot of different folks from outside the organization propose different ideas to us about how we can fight fire better, how we can protect and preserve property, and all of these different things. And so now we have this unit that's here that really is a culmination of a number of different things, but kind of wanted to get your perspective about this new FIU, is what they call it. What is it for? What are we trying to achieve with this new program?
Well, I always like to go back in time.
Yeah.
So I think about how the department has expanded and built, and I recognize that that there was a time that we didn't have a program that was really just dedicated to technology, research, and
Yeah.
development. It was always a collateral duty. We had our information technology, but specifically technology in and of itself with research and development was something that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And then we, several years ago, changed that focus. And we had to change that focus because there were innovators coming out of
Yeah.
every angle with every idea to make the landscape more resilient, to fight fire more effectively, to detect fire more effectively. So it really is through that effort that the Fire Innovation Unit was built within the technology program here at CAL FIRE. So before that, we had the Office of Wildfire Technology Research and Development, OWTRD. It still exists. It was legislatively mandated as well, and it was an independent advisory board that really was able to look at some of this technology. That has been a good process, but I think this Fire Innovation Unit is going to help drive some of that as well.
Stuff, yeah.
Drive it with innovators, drive it with philanthropic opportunities, drive it with the administration's priorities, the department's priorities moving forward.
Nice. And so with this group, you talked about moving forward. Do you have thoughts about where does this go? What do we look forward to with now a dedicated group who's really taking in a lot of these ideas and looking at the way technology consistently moves so quickly in all areas of society? What do we look forward to as an organization now that we have an FIU?
So again, history.
Yeah.
10 years ago, collateral duty. People would call in with their ideas and their thoughts, and somebody would document it. And then because it wasn't staffed or wasn't funded, nothing really would happen with those ideas unless they were super innovative.
Mm-hmm.
And so where we're at now is the ability to embed collaboration, to be able to embed partnerships at all levels, to look at those ideas that are coming in, those innovations that are coming in, and then be able to take them from concept to pilot testing to potentially practical application.
Mhm.
And so whether that is simply a new software for improving workflow, whether that is the use of UAS or unmanned aerial systems, whether that is autonomous flight. Some of our more recent efforts have been focused around low Earth orbiting satellites for detection, and the Alert California camera system, and innovative ideas of entering into artificial intelligence to detect new fires across California, which over 1,700 fires over the last couple of years have been detected before the first 911 caller. That is all progress. This is all what this FIU, Fire Innovation Unit, is going to be doing.
Wow. Amazing work. Amazing work.
You know, today we talked about, Monte, a lot of different topics. And I think it's important that we have to recognize for our employees that we are here to serve and protect the people and property of California, that we are here to provide a public service. And we can never forget that purpose and vision of why we're here. So all these things we talked about today, whether it be technology, whether it be about partnerships, whether it be about recruitment, it's all to make California a better place.
Yeah.
So looking at where we are, I appreciate everything that everybody has done and everybody continues to do to make California better protected and more resilient.
100%. That is exactly what I've experienced in my number of years in this organization. That is exactly what we're about. So this has been a really good show today. I want to thank you again for all of your leadership and all of the efforts that you have undertaken on our behalf. So thanks again.
Monte, I appreciate you facilitating this podcast. You know, there was a time in which we had an absence of this podcast, and it was because you were absent as well. You're back, and such a great job facilitating it, so thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that very much, and thanks. It's always good to be back. All right, well, folks, there you go. There you have it. It has been an amazing podcast today. We've got a lot of great topics that we covered, all in the interest of partnerships. This podcast will be available wherever you can find podcasts. That's where we'll be. So until next time, we're going to consider this session cooked. We will see you next time. Have a great day.